I'd like to welcome you all here tonight on behalf of FAU. My name is John Gold. If you don't know me, I'm the Acting State Representative for FAU. We have been lucky enough to have the Honourable Aaron Stonehouse come along and have a chat to us about our hobbies and our passions, and also Connor Whittle, sorry, I do know his name, Connor Whittle, who was the Acting State President for LDP. Close enough, excellent. So I'd like to thank the Cunnington RSL for allowing us to use their fantastic facility, and it's a shame that a lot of our live streamers can't actually be here, but it is a very lovely place, and I would encourage anyone who's in the area to actually come and have a look at this place if they get the opportunity. So thank you very much to them. I would now like to hand over to the Honourable Aaron Stonehouse to have a chat to us about firearms.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Let me just start by saying that I don't claim to be an expert on firearms. I've always had an interest in shooting. I grew up actually with 6 brothers. I'm the second youngest. So I grew up with a lot of the same stuff that they had, that they passed down, 80s action movies, stuff like Commando, Total Recall, Rambo, but also a lot of 80s militaria and military comics. So as 10-year-old me growing up, reading about rifle grenades and Operation Just Cause and so on. So I developed a bit of an obsession or an enthusiasm for all things military and firearms at a pretty young age. But it wasn't until I was about 16, one of my older brothers took me out shooting for the first time. We went down to Jarrahdale with a couple of rifles, and one of his mates had a couple of handguns, and we spent the whole day there on the range. As I'm sure you'll know better than I, there aren't necessarily all that many opportunities to shoot in our metro built-up areas. So while I enjoyed that initial experience, I didn't take it any further until quite recently. At this stage, I'm actually looking at a practical pistol. That appeals to me the most, and I've joined a club and I'm working my way towards getting holster proficiency. Again, you guys will know better than I do how long and complex that process is. But it's one I've enjoyed so far. It's also a process that has given me some first-hand experience in the sort of red tape and bureaucracy and costs that you go through on a daily basis just trying to become a firearm owner in Western Australia. Interestingly, some of our moral superiors in the media like to push this idea that we like guns because they make us feel like real men. They're big and they're loud and they make things blow up real good. Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of half the fun of it. But beyond that, I have a philosophical foundation for my support of firearms. I am a libertarian or a classical liberal. My political philosophy is one of individual liberty and limited government. I believe in the moral autonomy of the individual, freedom of thought and freedom of speech. My view of the government is one that that protects life, liberty and property. I believe we all have a natural right to self-defense, to defend not just ourselves, but our families and our property. To me, a firearm is more than just a tool, it's a symbol. It represents independence and self-reliance. It empowers an individual with the potential to take their life into their own hands, to be the master of their own destiny. This may no longer be the case in Australia today, but it has been in the past. Now, I've no doubt that I'm preaching to the choir when I remind you that we have some of the most draconian gun laws in the Commonwealth here in WA. We have the highest fee structure of any of the states or territories in Australia. Currently, it's about $259 for an initial application, as opposed to $169 in Victoria, $139 in Tasmania, or just $100 in Queensland and New South Wales. And let's be clear, in WA that's an initial 1-year licence, whereas many of the other states and territories will license you for up to 5 years for considerably less money. I can give you one small piece of good news tonight though. The word I'm hearing around Parliament is that the new Labor government has no plans to increase those fees and believes that any eventual increase should be linked to the process, the amount of work involved in licensing, rather than being some sort of backdoor revenue-raising exercise. However, I'd like to see us go further. I'd suggest that we should be looking at implementing the best practice. We should be looking at how each of the states and territories handles firearm licensing, figuring who does it best and who provides the most value for money, and then we should look to implement that system here in the West. Over the next few months, my team and I will be looking at ways that we might possibly make that happen. If, however, cost wasn't a big enough issue, I am frankly appalled at the balance between legislation and regulation when it comes to firearm ownership in Western Australia. I'm a legislator, so I might be accused of having a natural bias, but I believe it should be our parliamentarians, at least the people we elect, who decide what imposts and what rules should be imposed on law-abiding firearm owners in our community. Instead, all too often, it's left to the police to issue regulations and policy changes. Now, I'm sorry if this offends anybody, but I'm strongly of the opinion that our police should be enforcing the law and not making it. To give you just one example, a constituent contacted me just a couple of weeks ago. I won't name him, but he's a firearm repairer here in Perth. Some of you may have even taken guns to him to have repaired in the past. He was concerned about the latest handgun security policy document issued by West Australian Police to firearm dealers and repairers. In particular, he was concerned that some of the measures in the new abstract would effectively drive many dealers out of business. Ironically, he couldn't give me the chapter and verse of those measures because he'd been advised by the police not to copy the document to anyone. So here I am, a legislator, unable to advise a constituent because the document, which hasn't received any cursory stamp of approval from Parliament, has been drawn up by the police after minimal consultation and circulated with the caveat that its recipients are not allowed to share its details with anyone. Help me out here because this kind of sounds like bullshit. Now, I've done some research and I know that the measures that were troubling my constituent are, and I know how ludicrous it is, that at a time when the NBN rollout threatens to leave some residents in WA with slower internet speeds than they had before, to expect a small business to provide 24/7 live CCTV feeds. And I know how dumb it is to expect a small business owner whose premises are set next to a busy highway to spend thousands of dollars installing seismic sensors that are going to go off every time a truck or tanker passes by. But what offends me even more is that there was no opportunity for scrutiny ahead of time. The people of Western Australia elected me. They also elected a number of snowflakes who are opposed to gun ownership, but no one elected Carl O'Callaghan. Rest assured, though, that as soon as we return from the current recess, in just a couple of weeks' time, one of the first things I'll be doing is asking the Police Minister to table the full document that was circulated by the police, so that it's available not only to me, but to all of my colleagues, and is part of the public record. We'll then be able to question the Minister based upon that document, and I already have my office team working on a number of pointed questions that I intend to pursue. Now, that's just one of the ways I can be of assistance to you, by holding the government to account on your behalf and by putting forward reasoned arguments on the floor of Parliament. The upper house of Parliament is empowered to act as a house of review, and you can already see that in action. Changes to regulation in the Firearms Act to reclassify 7-shot lever-action shotguns as Cat D have already been introduced. However, there is a disallowance motion on the notice paper to stop that change in regulation, and I'll be doing everything that I can to support that disallowance. But what else can we do? Well, you may know that it's Liberal Democrats' policy to bring back semi-autos and to introduce some kind of concealed carry permit. I could bring forward a private member's bill to introduce amendments to the Firearms Act, bringing about some kind of gun enthusiasts' utopia, having 1776 commence again. But the reality is we would really achieve nothing, aside from perhaps causing some hysteria and moral panic amongst the Greens. It would be, in the end, a waste of energy and Parliament's time. Unfortunately, most of my colleagues see nothing to be gained and a good deal of risk in liberalising law as it currently applies to firearms. I'm just one guy. Yes, I have colleagues who will back me up on firearm issues, Rick Mazza from the Shooters and Fishers Party is now in his second term. A lot of you will know him. Some of my other crossbench colleagues from One Nation might be convinced to back moderate change, but even then we're still only a small number in a parliament of almost 100. It's clear that we have to work to bring about incremental change. We have to be pragmatic. It will take time. But there are a number of smaller, common sense changes that can be pursued in the short term. An easy target would be the nonsensical firearm appearance regulations we have that unnecessarily persecute firearm owners who wish to use barrel shrouds, muzzle brakes, Picatinny rails, or rifles with pistol grips. There is no public health argument to be made against firearms that resemble military-style rifles, so to me this seems like low-hanging fruit. We also have restrictions on handgun calibers. If you're interested in IPSC, you're limited to nothing larger than 38. This makes competitive pistol shooters unable to compete in a list of international competitions. Unserviceable firearms from before 1900 need to be licensed, while replicas do not. These make for great collectibles and pose no public health risk. There is a case to be made as well for legalizing suppressors. They reduce noise complaints, prevent hearing damage, and again pose no public health risk. Gun control advocates may be watching too many movies if they think they actually silence firearms. But one of the greatest difficulties going forward won't be convincing other politicians. Australia does have, to some degree, an anti-gun culture. We're surrounded by hoplophobes in the media and in politics. The mere mention of a firearm is enough to terrify some people. It's not the minds of the politicians we need to change, because the politicians don't drive culture. It's the other way around. Culture drives politics. If we can influence the culture around guns, if we can change the hearts and minds of the average Australian, we can bring about the change we seek. We need to engage with the public. While it might be fun to shout, "shall not be infringed" at gun-grabbing lefties on the internet, we need to do more than just that. We need to be understanding and empathetic. We need to educate. Most people don't know the first thing about firearms. Their opinions are likely influenced by what they hear on the ABC or Today Tonight. They haven't heard the other side of the story. We need to show these people that shooting is a healthy, safe, and legitimate sport. We need to teach these people about the value of hunting and conservation. This is something I think Firearms Owners United is doing a great job at already, and I would encourage you to continue. I find it refreshing to see that there's a whole new generation of firearm owners who are engaged politically online and in new media. It seems to me that the demographic of firearm owners is changing over time. It's no longer old mate with a shotgun on a rural property. You now have younger members engaging in recreational shooting and sport shooting. When I've been to the range, I see guys and girls in their 20s to 40s. With the internet, we've got Hickok 45, Forgotten Weapons, and image board commandos that are educating younger people about firearms. Now, I'm almost as new to Parliament as I am to gun ownership, but I'm passionate about the intersection of the two, and about ensuring that we have common sense, measured legislation in place that encourages recreational gun ownership and supports our shooting community. And of course, the flip side of that is that I abhor feel-good laws that simply sit on the statute books and don't achieve anything other than to piss off those of us who want to go about our lives without harming others. Legislation should always serve a practical purpose. Where it doesn't, you'll find a friend and an advocate in me, and in the Liberal Democrats as a whole. I look forward to working with you in the months ahead and throughout the course of this Parliament to help loosen the government's hold on our guns here in WA. With your help, we might make that hope a reality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Next we have Conor Whittle, who ran a very competitive race for election this year in Western Australia. I know you got a lot of votes, yes, agricultural area. We'd like to come and hear from you on your thoughts on FOU, and I believe Conor may actually be departing to us very shortly, so I'm sure he'll cover that as well. I'd like to welcome Conor Whittle.
Well, thank you very much for that, Aaron and John. I've recently left the Liberal Democrats to go and pursue other goals in other corners of the world, at least for the time being. Just kind of doing something with Firearms Owners United now. Let's see what we got. Well, thank you very much for coming tonight. That was a pretty good and informative speech by the Honourable Aaron Stonehouse. It's pretty good to know that we've got that gun rights do have a legislated future in Western Australia. Now, my name's Connor. Yes, I used to be the WA branch president for the LDP before being shanghaied into Firearms Owners United to help with this pro-gun cause that is very dear to my heart. It's in fact what got me involved in politics in the first place. But tonight we're here to launch Firearms Owners United in Western Australia. But who are we? We are a brand new Australian gun rights organisation. Over the coming years we'll be here to help new people get into the sport. We will lobby for a pro-gun rights philosophy, and we will support all of those who support us in our cause. Our aspirations. We shall soon be the voice for modern gun rights in Australia that we sorely lack. Our aspirations in time are to become a legitimate reason for firearms ownership for many thousands of the new gun owners to come. Our gun ranges will push the boundaries on hosted events and go the extra mile for you to accommodate the rarer and emerging disciplines, some of which are currently illegal in Australia. Our ranges will echo with the cracks of practical shotgun, rifle, carbine, 3-gun, and many more. We will capture the growing change in firearms ownership as we understand the new reasons for interest and the thought and will that is driving them. The culture. Here's excerpts taken from a 2015 article from the Daily Telegraph. New South Wales Police Firearms Squad blames US gun culture for 37,000 more New South Wales firearm licences. Detective Superintendent Platecki said yesterday that Australians have been influenced by the US belief in a right to bear arms and the prevalence of guns in movies and video games. And he follows. But there is an element to the community who are swayed by the US gun culture, that guns are a right rather than a privilege. And he says this as a pejorative. And of course, the media is quick to dutifully remind us that personal protection or protection of property are not classed as genuine reasons for getting a gun licence. An MP of a pro-gun party responded in the article. They had noted an increase in gun licences, but there did not seem to be an obvious reason. We don't know why, he said. Now this is not a specific complaint against a specific person or even a specific culture, organisation or party. This is simply the first glimpse to demonstrate the culture gap that exists between the shooting community inside the old and the new. Firearms Owners United are here because we understand why this is happening, and what's happening is this. The culture, the gun culture, as Aaron thankfully pointed out, the gun culture in the West is changing. The interests of a whole demographic have subtly and silently shifted in our direction and has shaped their interests and with them their new firearm tolerant desires. And with this new desires has come a new market for new content. A generation or two has grown up with nearly unlimited access to video games, and as the technology has progressed, the realism has increased, and with that its connection to real life, and so the attraction grows, and so the media reinforces around it. But the media, the actual media, the mainstream media is anti-gun, I hear some of you say. How do we possibly compete with that? How do we possibly compete with nightly news and opinion pieces in the paper? The media is anti-gun. Not any media I've seen in the past 5 years. My media is very pro-gun. Television. Oh yeah, I've heard about television. I've heard about it on my pro-gun YouTube feeds. I don't own a television. Many young people today, less and less young people today are owning television. And less and less of us do. Media is becoming increasingly personalised. Who cares what the anti-gun mainstream media says? My generation, in fact all people, cannot be affected by propaganda which is never delivered to them. It does not matter if the mainstream media throws great efforts into its anti-gun crusade, fewer and fewer of us watch it every day. Moving over to the new media and moving away from the fake news. This new media also works in our favour. YouTube, for example, wants you to enjoy more videos, so YouTube can serve you more ads. And to a young male video gamer, there is little more enjoyable than firearms, also porn, like the ones you regularly blast away with night after night. This is our future. This is the cultural change that is happening right now. This is the change that is now starting to fuel the growth in numbers of the shooters in Australia. This is the 37,000 new firearm owners in part. We're growing up. We've got jobs, we've got money, and firearms are now within our reach. This must first be understood before anything else can happen. Yeah, damn right. So the future seems bright for the new generations. These new numbers to swell our ranks. But what of us, who are here today? Is what we have good enough for those that will join us tomorrow? Will this great energy be harnessed, or will it be wasted like high-octane fuel in a dirty old rusty engine, converted into little more than useless noise and heat, instead of the motivating force that we need to save our culture and gun rights? We've been fighting a defensive battle for the past 20 years, longer even. I'm 24. This is old. A culture of keep your head down has unfortunately grown up around this. Understandable, but it still has grown up around it. Keep your nose clean. Don't make any noise. And please, please God, I hear some say, just leave us alone and we'll be good shooters. Not like those American shooters. just leave my bolt action and shotgun alone. And maybe, just maybe in a decade, we'll overturn a regulation or two. It's just got to take a bit of compromise first. Compromise. The anti-gun lobby in Australia, in the West, love compromise. To these nanny statists, to these cultural Marxists, to these unhinged control freaks, every compromise means that we lose ground. Every compromise we make is a step in the direction of complete civilian disarmament. Every rearguard action, no matter how valiant, is still a retreat, a loss of ground, and you do not win wars by retreating. It is now the right time to attack. The 8th of November 2016, Donald Trump was elected president. He showed us the way of things to come. Showed us that victory is possible in the face of overwhelming media opposition and bad press. He showed us in the most obvious and high-stakes way that victory is to be achieved not by being quiet and meek. If you are attacked, you double down. You take what is acceptable public dialogue and you ratchet up to 11. To never apologise due to the actions of others, and never to apologise when you have done no wrong. We have done no wrong. By the numbers, we are the most law-abiding, most peaceful and trustworthy group in Australia. Hey, we have earned that, and we will apologise for nothing. There are precedents. Concealed carry in the United States, the stereotype, the mainstream media boogeyman, everyone is carrying a gun, is only a recent reality. In 1986, 31 years ago, only 8 states had shall issue, while 16 totally forbade the practice. Today, 13 states are totally unrestricted, 29 are may issue, and there are no states which forbid it. This has been achieved by the hard work of people who are willing to push boundaries again and again. Firearms freedoms, on the whole, in the United States since the late 80s have been on the rise because people are not afraid to stick their necks out, make noise, and never compromise. In June, the Czech Republic, in the very heart of the anti-gun European Union, moved to legalise private ownership of firearms for self-defence to thwart terrorist attacks. We don't want to disarm our citizens at a time when the security situation in Europe is getting worse. Interior Minister Milan Čović told the Czech Parliament, following with, "Show me a single terrorist attack in Europe perpetrated using a legally owned weapon." Victory is possible. The culture is changing. There will be more of us tomorrow and the day after. Our great games and videos and Facebook pages and their memes and arguments and all this stuff, all this banter, it's done its job. We can now move on to the next part, the next stage, real life. It is time for a pro-gun organisation to finally emerge in Australia which understands what is coming and what needs to be done. With your help and with the help of those with your help and the help of those to come. Firearms Owners United is being built for tomorrow as much as today. Yes, other firearms organisations exist and have served us valiantly in their own way, but can we take a chance on them tomorrow? That they will lurch into action, slough off decades of fearful thinking and grasp wholeheartedly what we have already grasped, what I have told you tonight. And in so chancing, we need to ignore that existing organisations are established organisations. And established ones take time to change course and adapt. Precious time to change course. What things man creates like bullets once fired tend to follow their initial trajectory and deviate only little. To change course can be a Herculean effort, but we want that path. And we are set that way from day one, from here and ever onwards. Now the roadmap. Regular meetings will begin soon in Western Australia, he says with a wink. The paperwork for legalities is being completed. From here we will begin paid membership and donation drives to launch into our raison d'etre, that being helping to licence firearm owners all across Australia and build our base of support. With membership and money we enter into lobby. We raise and promote those who want to secure and advance gun rights, and we throw sand into the gears of those who mean to disarm us and destroy our way of life. We know what we're here for. In time, we will be a significant voice for the pro-firearms message. Always being the extra step out in front. Never reserved in philosophy or action, like a magnet we will drag people our way. Here is never good enough. Always further, always better. We will never punch down those who are ahead of us. We will never hinder those who help us along our way but have not come yet as far. But as I asked, who are we? We are going to be a legitimate reason to own firearms in Australia. We will provide a hand with the legalities. We will build ranges and help instruct courses. We will be a lobby in the halls of all state and federal parliaments. We will be there to take on the new blood flowing into this culture. We will take this new force and we will fight for self-defence, for semi-automatics, for laws that no longer treat us as criminals in waiting. And we will act with a freedom unthinkable by other organisations. We are Firearms Owners United, and united we stand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Connor. I don't know if anyone else felt that, but that was quite stirring for me. Now, so we do have some Q&A. I'd like to open it up to the guys who are actually here because, again, thank you very much for attending. Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask either Connor or the Honourable Aaron Stonehouse? Myself as the Firearm Owners United representative. Open floor.
You guys get priority over the internet.
That's right.
What's your next step? Good question.
Okay, the question was, what's our next step? Connor, would you like to cover that one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks for that. The next step is pretty much outlined. We're going to be a gun rights organisation in Australia. We're going to have gun ranges. We're going to have the legality sorted out. We're going to be there to help people get into the sport in a step-by-step way doing this. Okay, well, what do we need to do to get a gun range? We need to have some money, we need to have some land, we need to have influence. It's more than simply, as some political stuff I've been involved with before, 3 guys in a pub. It's got to be a bit more than that. We've got tens of thousands of members in Firearms Owners United currently. Whether they're not quite paid members yet, but we'll work on that, won't we? With this, a gun range, at the end of the day, it's a combination of legalities and property and money to build stuff. These are all completely achievable. I'm not too sure it will happen in Western Australia first, but just due to numbers, we'll I can't go too much into long-term strategy depth because I don't know it, as I'm just a Shanghai rope in here. But forward all technical questions to the staff at Firearms Owners United. They've got send them a message on Facebook or by email. Yeah, that we're going to be a proper gun rights organisation. Thanks.
Thanks, Connor. Any other questions from the floor? Yes? Oh, yep.
Where do we sign up and where do we volunteer?
Sorry, where do we sign up?
Where do we sign up and where do we volunteer?
Okay, well, as for the people actually in this room at the moment, we do have some sign-up forms up the back. I will be setting up my laptop so we can have people sign up. Although given our technical problems at this point, I'm not too sure we'll go for the laptop route. We do have a pen. Pens work. Pens are good. Yeah. And the second part was volunteering. Right now, volunteering is pretty scant. We've just, the WA branch in an official form is like only half an hour old. So yeah, still got a bit of ways to go. Always, if you've got questions about, what if there's a way you can help out, send a private message to the Facebook team or email or whatever. Over the coming months and few years till the next state election, at least in WA, fully expect you guys will be helping out with Aaron Stonehouse and Shooters and Fishers guys and One Nation and lobbying, and whether even that's just basic helping out, creating forms or just sign up lists or whatever. It can be some pretty basic stuff sometimes. The cool stuff, I'm not too sure Australia is yet ready to see, guys do open carry protests, but it's a stretch goal. So so yeah. Okay. Let's not go to prison, hey?
It's not. Excellent. Thank you. We had another question from the floor.
It is ready to give, ready to go. We sign up, we go out and we start advocating to the people we know in the shooting world and say, come on, join up, let's move.
So realistically, the question is, are we incorporated body and are we ready to go with membership and getting our drive going? I can answer that question. Yes, we're incorporated. Yes, we're ready to take memberships, donations, anything. And we realistically, our group is there, from my understanding, to push and lobby for our firearm owners' rights. I think both speeches sort of pretty much covered how do we promote this. Get your parents engaged. Get your brothers and sisters engaged. Get your kids engaged. Show them shooting is a fun sport. It is a fun sport. Hunting is a fun activity to do outside and away from your iPad. That's what we're really trying to promote. We're ready to take memberships as of now. I'm just looking on our feed to see if there's any more. Do you have any other questions from the... Sorry?
Not really. I'll give it another minute. Other than that, we can... This is a final request to anyone on the Facebook page if they want a question or... All right, well, we'll answer our friend Wayne Higgs. Okay, so Wayne Higgs asked, where is the money coming from for the ranges? So you're looking for a lot of finance and legalities considering the government is trying to shut it down. Yes, firearm ranges are an expensive proposition. That's kind of half the point of having an institution like Firearms Owners United, is to be that collecting organisation to make sure that we can build these sort of things. Like right now, is it a case of like, how much have I got? Friggin' not too much. Not too much, thank you very much. But it takes a little bit more than beer money, but this is what we're here to do. Figure if we have enough people donating beer money, then eventually we'll, have a range, but... Yep. All right. Is there any more questions? Got any ideas for our first range? Just on the technical aspect of things, no, you can't really... You can't... Okay, that's a good question. Is FOU looking for land for people to donate or any other sort of thing? Yes, that's how it works. Gun ranges, as much as buying land would be great if we had the cash, a lot of it would come through donating of land in the right sort of areas. Money and land and stuff. This is a full spectrum sort of endeavour we're undertaking here. So yeah. Although if anyone's got any particular details, send it through to the FOU website.
Yep.
So yeah.
Another question at the back.
I just had a question for the Minister also. It's good to hear, obviously, talking about legislation with regards to firearms ownership, things like that. Just wondering, there's steps in place that we're looking in regards to the legislation change which might come about to allow hunting on public lands, like on state forest and crown land.
Right. Yeah. So the question is, what steps could be taken to allow hunting on public land? I'm fully behind it. As I understand it, it's already taking place in WA. It's already going on, apparently. So how to actually get involved in that, I don't have the particulars. I think you need to get in touch with the department that maintains the parks. I can't remember the name of that specific department. I think one of the gentlemen in the audience knows the department, but it's actually already legal. Luckily, it hasn't been sort of advertised too broadly, because if it was, it would probably be shut down. But it has been sort of brought in kind of under the radar. So as I understand it, you can do it, but you have to seek special approval from the authority that maintains the parks. Forgive me, I'm new to Parliament, so I don't know all the departments yet. But you can do it. In terms of having it open, sort of open slather where anyone can go in and hunt, look, I would definitely like to see it more accessible. We've just got it in now, just in this previous Parliament, so it may take a little while before it becomes more accessible where, you could just, sort of pay a fee when you enter and go and hunt and do what you like. But for now, yeah, it is possible at the moment. Yep. If anyone has any other questions for me, I can take them now before we go down. Michael.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I want to commend you on bringing together two very fine speakers. Now, I've had the opportunity in recent weeks to listen very frequently on a daily basis to the Honourable Aaron in Parliament, and I have to say this man is a great breath of fresh air in the parliamentary system, and I very much look forward to him setting, at the very least, a record number of 10 terms in the Western Australian Parliament, even though I doubt that I'll be around to see the last of those at least. But it is a great pleasure and a great honour to see this sort of talent, and it's worth making a comment on Connor Whittle, who gave an absolutely inspiring speech today, even though he's paying no attention to what I'm saying. It will be a great thing to see him coming back from Germany refreshed and ready to take up the leadership role which he deserves to have. Now, my question to the Honourable Aaron Stonehouse is this. Thinking back to my own youth in a different part of Australia, where my school had a rifle range. Are there schools in Western Australia which have rifle ranges? Are they used? And if they have rifle ranges, is it possible that a school could be persuaded to rent out its rifle range to a worthwhile organisation of honourable firearms owners?
Right, so the question is, are there any schools that have firearm ranges that could be used? Not that I know of. It would be fantastic if there are, but none that I know of. There are, however, various clubs for youth that do engage in shooting. When I went to a range a few weeks ago to sort out my club membership for Practical Pistol, they actually had a large group of young girls, probably about 10 years, maybe 10 to 15 years old girls, about probably like 30, 40 girls there as members of the equestrian club doing shooting. So they had girls who were part of a club for horse riding on the range doing shooting, probably rimfire, I imagine, but to see that kind of activity being promoted amongst clubs aimed at youth is fantastic. And in terms of getting it into schools, I would love to see it. I imagine I might be in the minority in terms of members of Parliament who would like to see shooting promoted in schools, but or as an activity promoted in schools. But yeah, to see clubs out there engaging in that activity is fantastic. I certainly advocate it. If I hear of any schools that are engaged in that activity, I'll be sure to share the information around. But I would love to hear about that as well.
Okay, another one.
Yeah, probably for the Minister as well this one.
Sure.
Far away.
You made
may be aware, within recent years, the Swanbourne Civilian Rifle Club has been removed from their access to the Swanbourne Military Rifle Range. Obviously, there's concern about that happening in other areas like Geraldton and Bunbury and that kind of thing. Is there any action being taken to prevent that happening with further military civilian shared ranges?
Yeah, I was actually not aware of that. So if there's anything that I can do in my parliamentary role, I certainly will. I need to be aware of that kind of stuff. A lot of these changes happen without anybody being told. It just gets done sort of by the police or by whatever relevant authority. No one gets told, and it's only really the people who are directly affected by it who have any idea of what's happening. So I would love to hear more about that. If there are cases there where I can lend a hand in my position, if it's lobbying members of the government or just using my bully pulpit in Parliament, I'd be happy to assist there. So anyone who's experiencing those issues, let me know, let my office know, shoot us an email, and we'll see what we can do.
You got one for Aaron? Shoot now.
That's it. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, so it's the suppressors seem to be a sort of win-win. There's no conceivable public health issue there. You know, it's not like a suppressor is going to help somebody commit a crime any easier, but it is going to, it's going to help people with situational awareness. It's going to mean you can fire with less ear protection on, and it's going to reduce, maybe the number of people experiencing hearing damage or hearing loss. So yeah, I'm very much for suppressors, and like you mentioned, there's a very good case to be made for them. Yeah. Yeah. Look, that's how to push that issue exactly requires probably a little bit more research on my part. But the OH&S angle is definitely the angle to take on suppressors. I mean, we'd love them because they're cool and it means you don't have to wear ear probe. But at the end of the day, it is an OH&S issue for people who are engaging in a legitimate, lawful sport. They should have access to them. Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right. Now we're going to be taking a few more questions from the tubes. All right.
Yep. Okay, so we have a question in relation to paintball and airsoft and FAU's stance on paintball and airsoft.
So this one's should be pretty self-explanatory for who we are as an organisation. Paintball and airsoft are toys and should be legislated as such. They, maybe there's a bit at the edge about the joules, the actual energy which can do X, Y, or Z. But no, for airsoft, for paintball, these things are toys. They're not firearms. They shouldn't be considered firearms. Yeah, completely deregulated. That's what the FIU will lobby for coming up pretty shortly.
Okay. The other question we have is, why do states have different laws?
Yeah, that's a good one. Actually, can you...
That might be it.
Do you know this one? Well, yeah. Yeah, Aaron nailed it, for those who couldn't hear. It's the reason why states have different firearm laws is why the states have different laws to begin with anyway. It's a right reserved by the states under all situations. Yeah, I think as far as things go, and also kind of an opinion of the FIU, is that this also makes it a bit easier for is that it makes it easier to achieve change. If we're only focusing on the federal level, then that requires an order of magnitude more effort than several orders of magnitude more than if we're focusing on state. Ideally, it would be more like the American county system, where you can, just as a Queenslander should have absolutely, or Tasmanian should have absolutely no effect on WA gun laws. Arguably, why should someone from inner city suburbs who never see the green stuff apart from, in front of their screens. Why should they have any sort of deciding factor over what happens to country gun laws? The FOU, Firearms Owners United, we're actually kind of happy about different state laws. That's all.
Were there any more questions from the people who've attended here? Yes. No?
Regards to non-lethal such as Cassins Road, Gus Road, I think it's legal to purchase them, but illegal to use in a self-defense situation.
Pretty much.
Carrying in public places, so as well.
Just comment on that. The question was, well, kind of statement was that in Australia, unlike some of the other states, we have access to buy certain means of self-defence like pepper spray, capsicum spray. It's increasingly difficult to actually use it though in a practical self-defence situation and not be found and drawn, drawn and quartered by the state if you do so. Yeah, or the airport. Yes, don't do that. Just as a thing, Firearms Owners United, we are for self-defence rights, and it means all degrees of incrementalism here. We're here for if someone breaks into your house, you should have castle right to, even if it's just a baseball bat, even if it's just using your fist, whatever. You're a big dude, for you. Getting the and then up from there, non-lethals like pepper spray. Just there should be absolutely no reason required for holding pepper spray. Tasers, even. And then from there, the harder and harder arguments, we understand, firearms, etc., for self-defence. But for less than lethal or non-lethal means of self-defence, there should be absolutely no legal reason, no legal hindrance at all to stop people from doing these sort of things. All right, what do we got? Okay, well, any more? If we got any more from the live stream, then let us know. Otherwise, we'll wrap this up. No? All right, well, looks pretty good. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for coming along tonight, and thanks everyone on the live stream, and many more people to check us out online in the days and months and years to come. Firearms Owners United, united we stand. Thank you.